like, hey guys, we just wanted to say happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. We're doing something a little different today. We're gonna dive into who my dad was, what he did for the off-roading industry, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Okay. So my dad's name is Phil Peacock, and a lot of people nicknamed him Thrill Phil because he was a wild man. Much like me, I like to think. Just kind of lived on the edge. Always looking for the next adventure. Always trying to see what's over the next ridge or canyon. But my dad was a really humorous guy. He was kind of a showman in a subtle way. Kind of an example of that, we'd be on the trail and somebody would climb a ledge or something like that. My dad would climb it, turn around, and do it in reverse lots of times. So it was really fun as a kid, just knowing how much of a stud your dad was and just kind of watching all that happen. He fixed everything. He was a master mechanic. So anytime there was a problem on the trail or something broke, I mean, he had it handled. I mean, there was never a time that we didn't make it home. Granted, there was times that we barely made it home, and there was some sketchy times, but they were fun times, and you always remembered those over all the trips that went super smooth. So that was kind of my dad in a nutshell. He was that guy that would walk into a room and everything just kind of revolved around him. In some sort of way. He knew how to make people laugh, and he just kept that good time rolling. He was all about a good time. We were kind of just nomadic. We would go out as a family, and Moab was super cool because you could hang out in town and you would see convoys of Jeeps or trucks or whatever go by, and you'd just go and jump in with them and run the trail, and it was a cool way to meet new people and just really experience those things with other people. We joined up with the Grand Mesa Jeep Club, and I think it's really important to join those clubs, those off-road clubs, because you pay dues and that kind of sucks, but that money that goes into those dues is used to fund trail cleanups, to keep trails open, fighting the fights with BLM and county maintenance and all those things that we're faced with as off-roaders, overlanders, everything. And having the support of a club and like-minded people, you're able to fight those fights and keep trails open. Through the Jeep Club, my dad met some friends, and there was a county road running through Grand Junction, and it was very close to town, but my dad stumbled upon it one day just exploring around, and it was 21 Road in Grand Junction, Colorado. And at the time, it was kind of a county road that had access to oil wells and natural gas wells, things like that. But the road had completely washed out towards the end, and so the county closed it down. And my dad saw the potential that this could be a really cool trail and went to the county, got the Jeep Club behind him, had those battles to maintain that as a road. But the deal that the county made is that they had to post, county maintenance in so that they weren't responsible for the road. But we were able to take motor vehicles back there and, keep it as a trail. But being that it was so washed out, it was impassable for anything at the time. So after school and after work, my dad would load us up, and we ran, air tools off of the ARB compressors in the Jeeps to chisel out rocks and to make it passable. We'd winch rocks out of the way, and we formed it into a trail that is now one of the most premier rock crawling trails in western Colorado. So that was a really cool experience as a kid, just kind of watching that form, having that club, and many hands make light work. So the more people you have behind you, the better things are going to end up. So when I was in 6th grade, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma cancer, and he went through a lot of surgeries, went through a lot of treatments, chemotherapy, radiation. I mean, it wiped him out. But that was when my dad's Jeep was red, and he had just started building it to kind of the next phase where we painted it blue, we lifted it up, we put 35-inch tires on it. But right in the middle of the Jeep build, he got sick and he was wiped out with the treatments. I remember my brother and I, we had to do a pretty fair amount to the Jeep. My dad still was out there. He still was welding on the frame. I mean, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But you know, all the hard stuff, my brother and I were sanding the Jeep down for repaint and all this stuff. And it was really a challenging time for him. But he still led the family. He still, you know, worked hard on the Jeep build. And ultimately, I think he was still going through chemotherapy when Jeep Jamboree USA reached out to him because they knew of his knowledge in the San Juan Mountains around Ouray, and they wanted somebody to lead that year's Jeep Jamboree. And I mean, we're talking 200 to 300 rigs that my dad led, you know, while battling cancer through the mountains. And I can remember as a kid, it was so cool because that was another like milestone with hard work. That was one of our first trips out when the Jeep was blue and on the big tires. And so it was cool that we had worked so hard, and now we're seeing it in action, you know, and seeing Dad, you know, doing his thing, even with everything that was going on. And you know, we went down, I think it was Red Mountain Pass, and we were towards the bottom, and we could look back at the mountain and see the switchbacks, and we were at the bottom, and there were still Jeeps coming down. The trail, or the group, was that big. We came back to reality. The cancer was still there, and it had spread, actually. The doctors finally did everything they could do. They told my dad he had 6 months to live. And my parents were getting wiped out with medical bills, and the Jeep Club kind of banded together with a lot of other people, and they threw fundraisers for my dad to pay for his medical bills. Ultimately, I think it saved our house that we had in Colorado. So again, with the clubs, you know, they're family in this industry, and they will help you through other battles that you have in your life aside from just the trail related stuff. We kind of got to the point where, you know, all the treatments, my dad, you know, nothing was working, nothing was getting rid of the cancer, and so we just started praying, and we rode that out, and that was all we had. And one day we went to the doctor, and I'll never forget the look on his face. He came out and said, "I don't know how to explain this, but there's no cancer in your body." And it was poof, gone. And we were back. We were back on the trail. We were back in action. And it was awesome. You know, I wasn't ready to lose my dad then. I was barely in 6th grade, you know, middle school. We needed our dad. And, you know, we went right back out in the Jeep. We started kind of doing more rock crawling type stuff. We didn't quite do the overlanding as much, and it didn't feel the same. We weren't really doing those adventures anymore that we did, you know, with the off-road trailer and camping out and things like that. So it was still fun. It was cool to see, but it just kind of wasn't the same. So ultimately we started going to the lake, and we got a boat, and we did that stuff. And my dad sold that Jeep, and at the time, like, it sucked because that Jeep was just, we had done so much to it. We had so many memories in it. My dad cried, you know, when he sold it. Probably one of the only times I've seen him cry. I think we did too. But I didn't really care that much as a kid because we had the boat, and, you know, we were doing all this stuff. So we kind of just let it go. And years later, the cancer came back in about 2016. And ultimately it came in the form of brain cancer. And in March of 2016, my dad passed away from the brain cancer. And just seeing that passing and going through all that, I felt kind of lost. I didn't know what to do, where to go, any of that stuff. And I was a parent now with 3 kids. And so, you know, I'm trying to help them get through losing their grandpa, and, you know, inside I'm just torn to pieces. So that was a really tough time, and we kind of just floated through 2016. And in 2017, it was the day after Christmas, and we had time off. And my wife's like, "Hey, what do you want to do?" I said, "Hey, let's go up to Ouray." And we hadn't returned since I was in middle school, you know. So it was kind of a bold trip. And I didn't have a Jeep, I didn't have anything. I had just a regular truck. And it was the middle of winter, so most all the trails are closed. So we went up to Ouray, and we just ran up to Animas Forks from Silverton. It's just a county road. It's nothing challenging or anything, but we were able to do it in the truck that I had. And up to this point, I was really lost. And when we got into the San Juan Mountains, I started chasing my dad, and I knew he was in those mountains. And we had a great time. We sled and did things like that, and then we came back home. And then the following spring, my wife said, "Hey, let's go back to Ouray." And I'm kind of like, "All right, you know, what do you want to do?" And she's like, "Well, I kind of want to do more off-roading, things like that, but the truck I had, it just wasn't gonna work." So we rented a Jeep, and it was the best time. The kids had a blast. My wife had a blast. And like I said, I knew I was where I needed to be. That's where my dad was, and just running those trails again. Now the perspective changed. Now I'm the dad, and I'm looking at my kids, seeing it all like I did as a kid. Same perspective, same viewpoint, all that stuff. But now they're bailing off all the rocks. They're covered in mud. They're sprinting. They're looking at their dad going through these trails, and I knew, I'm like, this is what needs to happen. This is what we're all about. Taking my kids through the same childhood that I had in the garage, you know, working on it, trying to figure out, you know, problem solving and how we're gonna build it. And it was just, it's been such a cool experience watching them grow up like I did. It's so cool to see things probably the way my dad did, and to also see what my kids are seeing, basically the same things that I saw as a kid. So I'm sitting at both perspectives right now, of being the dad and knowing what my dad thought and saw, and now seeing my kids and knowing exactly what's going on in their minds based on what they're seeing. And it's just the coolest thing to take your family out to these destinations and just adventure. I mean, you know, just cut out all the noise, all the electronics, and just hit the mountains, hit the desert, whatever it is, and just really spend time together and make those memories together. So thank you guys again for going on this ride with us. From the bottom of my heart, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, and just keep doing what you're doing, because it's appreciated by your kids more than you'll ever understand.